Welcome everybody to Everybody Love House Music and More. My guest of the hour, Mr. Alan King. Alan, how you doing today, brother?
I'm good, brother. I'm really good. I don't have a Grammy winner in my house every day, so this is exciting for me too.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate you being on the show. So we about to get in it.
Let's do it.
All right. In some ways, you are an unsung pioneer of house culture and the building blocks leading up to the genre of house. What year did you get started DJing, and what records were you playing at the time?
Man, you're going to make me say how old I am right from the jump, huh? So the short version is I started DJing in 1977, and really I didn't have any plans to become a DJ. I graduated from 8th grade that year, and I decided I was going to have this big 8th grade graduation blowout. So I was the DJ for the party. You know, I didn't have two turntables or mixer, or didn't know anything about that at that point in time, but really fell in love that day with, you know, the act of putting on music and having people react to it and,
Right.
and picking the next song.
So what year was that?
That was 1977. So it would have been May of 1977.
Oh, wow.
So after that, like I had the bug. So I'm
Right.
like, I went researching, have my old man take me down to Pacific Stereo. You remember?
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I figured out,
We
you know,
know
I
where that
got to get two turntables and I got to get a mixer. And
Right.
the old man could not understand why I needed two of the same turntable.
Right.
And so anyway,
Like
so
two of them.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So, you know, so from that point, 77, 78, 79, I was getting really popular, you know, doing parties around the South Side, high schools, basements, backyards. And, you know, when I first started playing in 77, it was more R&B stuff. You know,
Right,
it was
right.
Cameo
Right.
and, you know, Mass Production,
Correct,
Firecracker, different
Okay.
stuff. Oh, that was a little bit later. But so anyway, I started to get a pretty decent following in the late 70s. And then I would find myself running into these two rival DJs named Wayne Williams and Jesse Saunders.
Oh, wow.
Who had a group called the Chosen Few at the time.
Okay,
of
so that
course.
was my next question. What year
Yeah.
did you join the Chosen Few, and were you first to join?
Yeah.
Since it was Wayne and Jesse already.
I think Tony Hatchet might have beat me by like months.
Okay.
But 79 or 80, Tony and I joined after Wayne was obviously the founder and
Right,
Jesse was the
right.
first, at least DJ member. There's a longer story about Chosen Few non-DJ members, but
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, we got to get into that now.
I'm gonna leave that to Wayne Williams, but
that's a part two then, Wayne.
yeah, right. But so it was Wayne and Jesse, and I, you know, we were kind of on the same set and doing, you know, the same parties, and
Right.
It's funny that the Wayne and Jesse at the time used to have these white jackets with blue stripes.
Okay.
That had CF Chosen Few on there.
Really?
And I was like, damn, I want one of those jackets.
So that's why you want to be in a group, just
Just to get the jacket,
Wow.
you know. And anyway, things sort of came together, and Wayne invited, I think, Tony a little, maybe months before me, and then me to be part of the crew. So
Okay, what year was that when you first joined?
it was 79 or 80.
Okay.
Either late 79 or early 80. And then a little bit later, Andre Hatchet became the fifth member. And, you know,
Okay.
for a while, Andre was just Tony's little brother.
Wow.
And, you know, we just let him during the week kind of keep the equipment at
Right.
his house. And so he practiced and, you
Oh,
know,
my goodness.
then we, you know, graduated to letting him open the parties
Okay.
when nobody was there.
Right.
And eventually, you know, we looked at each other and said, damn, this kid can play.
Andre, that's right.
And yeah, so we were the original first 5 members of the Chosen Few.
Okay, so Wayne Williams says that you guys connected because he needed more DJs with their own records to meet the demands of the parties.
Yeah.
Please tell me your version of that story, please.
Yeah, I don't particularly care for that story because when he tells us,
Come on, Alan.
it sounds like he only got me because I had records,
Right,
and not
right.
that I could throw down.
Right.
So he knows better than that. So I think it was definitely a combination of you know, like I said, you know, I'd fall in some parties and he'd be DJing, he'd fall in some parties,
Right.
and I'd be there, and you know, I think obviously I impressed him with, what I was playing and how I was playing it. But it was significant that I had my own records too, because
Right.
really he had the one crate for the Chosen
Right.
Few,
Right.
and he had his eyes on my second crate.
So where were you getting your records at the time?
Primarily, it was a spot called Sounds Good Records,
Okay.
and it was on Belmont and Broadway.
Okay.
And this is the late '70s, and in fact, Sounds Good is the first record store where I ever saw had a section they called disco.
Oh wow.
So they had their little disco section, and this is '77, '78,
Right.
and a lot of records from Sounds Good. But then, Metro Music, different places, and then obviously,
Right.
and now I'm forgetting the little place in the alley, Imports, et cetera,
Imports, et cetera,
eventually,
yeah.
but yeah.
Okay. All right. So can you recall the evolution of what ultimately became house culture from your vantage point?
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned house culture, because I always explain that those are two different things.
Right.
There was a culture of house music, and then an official genre of
Correct.
music, of course, called house music.
Right.
But for me, like a lot of other people, I mean, the culture was in large part built up around the Warehouse Club and Frankie's Club, and when I first started hearing the word house,
Right.
it was in reference to the Warehouse.
Okay.
So it would be that scene, but also the music, like music Frankie was playing at the time. You might hear somebody say, "Oh, damn, that's house."
Right.
Like it's the kind of stuff we hear Frankie playing down at the Warehouse. But it really at that time was still disco. It was more underground disco than.
Right. So when did you start attending the Warehouse, and how old were you at the time?
Yeah, I honestly did not go to the Warehouse until I turned 18, which
Okay.
was in 1981.
Okay.
So I got stories of hanging out outside the Warehouse,
Right.
outside the Jeffrey Pub,
Right.
All these places where I fell in love with this music.
Right.
But I won't tell the Chicago lie of I got the fake ID and all of that. So I started.
Well, you was there from the beginning. So.
Nah, so yeah, I was, but I started. So a lot of people don't realize. So the Chosen Few, we were a really big crew.
Okay.
Before Wayne may have been to the Warehouse, but before any of us, went to the Warehouse, we were playing similar music.
Okay.
And I think one of the biggest things that Chosen Few, prior to the picnic, which is a whole
Right.
different conversation, but probably one of the biggest things that we did is we were introducing the kind of music that Frankie was playing for a largely black, gay,
Okay.
adultish audience
Right.
at the Warehouse and other gay clubs around the city. We were, I think, primarily the ones at that time that were introducing the same music to straight
kids, right.
kids, high school kids.
Right.
So-
Since you said that,
Yeah.
since attending the Warehouse as a straight kid,
yeah,
what do you think why you think you were so open about that?
man, the whole experience just grabbed me. I mean, it was the music, of course, but it was the sound
Right.
and that
Just the whole
bass
vibe
hitting,
in there, yeah.
the whole vibe in there. That I couldn't have cared less if people were having sex, men and men, or women
Right.
next to me on the
Right.
floor. I didn't care. I was focused on that
On the
sound and the music.
Wow.
And I had no hesitation whatsoever about going there after the first time I went. And I know a lot of folks and a lot of pioneers in the
Right.
scene that were very homophobic and,
Right.
and never went for that reason.
Yeah.
But man, I loved it. Once I went, I lived there
Nice.
until it closed.
And then
basically.
you started going to the Warehouse in 81.
81.
81.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And you speak often about your friendship with Frankie Knuckles.
Yeah.
How did that develop from fan to friend?
Yeah, it's crazy, really. So back in those days when I started going to the Warehouse and then the power plant, I used to, and I forget how I got up the nerve initially, but I used to go in there with a cassette tape, and I would pass it up to Frankie.
Oh, really?
When I get there, and he'd take the cassette and he'd pop it in there and he'd flip it over, and I would leave every night. And this was more so probably at the power plant than
Okay. Than the
the
Warehouse.
Warehouse. But
Okay.
he would record these tapes for me all the time, and we started to develop a rapport. But it wasn't until much, much later. He had obviously gone on to New York and lived there for a while. But when he moved back to Chicago, we became really good friends and
Right.
just got really, really connected. And that was amazing. I mean, he's obviously, the man
Right.
from my perspective in this whole scene. But, to become close friends, I had the honor of speaking at his memorial service.
Correct.
And, I can't talk about him too much because I
Right.
still
Right.
get
Yeah, I
misty.
feel you.
But
No, I understand. All right. So your
But-
career path must have
Yeah.
taken you away from the Chicago scene for your education.
yeah.
What year was that? And did you stay connected to DJing during that time?
Yeah, good questions because I definitely was more involved in the pre-house
Right.
era.
Right.
So I left for college in '81
Okay.
and played basketball in college. So I had a lot going on, and
Right.
then law school for '85 to '88. So I did miss a lot of the when you guys started putting out the
Right.
records,
Yeah.
and I'm away at school, and Jesse's telling me he's got a record out. I'm like,
What's
what do you
going
mean
on?
you got a
Right.
record out?
Right.
Like,
Right.
So I stayed connected with it. Obviously, a lot of friends were putting out records and starting to blow up and
Right.
going over to Europe and all of that. Thanks, Steve and Jesse and
Yeah.
Farley and others. And so I never lost touch with the music, and certainly with what.
Because everybody kept calling and tell you what's going right. Exactly.
Yeah, pretty much. So, but yeah, I'm the first to admit that I was kind of a big player in the pre-house scene,
Right.
but then in the '80s I was a little bit removed, and then kind of came back to it later on.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So when you since you
Yep.
said that, so
Yep.
were you around when the Hot Mix 5 first aired?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how you think that impacted Chicago, particularly on the South Side?
I think it was huge. It probably was bigger on the north side and other parts of town than the south side. And I only say that because there was this teenage south side scene that Chosen Few and others were doing, at,
Right.
Showers or Sawyers, depending on how you pronounce
exactly.
it. First Impressions and different clubs, candy store, all these different things. So there was a scene on the south side, I think, before the Hot Mix 5 really got big on the airways. But
Okay.
once they did, I got nothing but love for Hot Mix 5.
Right.
I mean, the reach of that BMX
Yeah.
signal.
And that's interesting that
Yeah.
you said that, because why do you think Farley was picked for the Hot Mix 5 instead of maybe Jesse or Wayne?
Farley does a lot of tricks, and
right.
we in fact way back in the day, and I remember when Farley was not a DJ at all.
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
knew
Please
Farley.
tell us some
Yeah.
stories, man. Come on.
Yeah,
Alan.
I mean, the first time I met Farley was at Jesse Saunders' house.
Okay.
And I think he was at the time kind of apprenticing and kind of learning
Right.
from Jesse, but he wasn't a name. He wasn't out there.
Right.
So I remember when he wasn't a DJ at all. But once he became a DJ, and I'm not sure where this influence came, because I don't think it was Jesse, and we started calling him New York, because he'd do the scratching and
Right.
and backspins and all that
tricks,
stuff that you'd associate with the hip hop DJs in New York.
Right.
So we used to call him New York. So I don't know the
You used to call Farley New York,
we called
huh?
him New York.
Oh, wow.
He might not even know we
Right,
called him
right.
New York, but we called him New York.
Okay.
And he was super talented. I mean, you can't deny that.
Yeah.
What he could do. So maybe it was the sort of the trick part of it that caught the programmer's eyes at
Right, right,
BMX. I don't know for sure, but
So we come to the very controversial matter of how do you think, or where do you think house music came from, and the name or the term house music in your perspective?
yeah, I mean, like I was saying earlier, I mean, I always explain it that there was a culture and even a music that was referred to as house, I think, before you can say there was an official genre of music, of house
Right.
music.
Right.
And as I understand official genres, I mean, you have to put out, at the time anyway, records. that has some association with the genre. So, Jesse has conditioned me well enough to say that On and On was the first of those records. But obviously you don't have an official genre of music until, Jesse's record comes out. Obviously Chip's EP came out,
Right.
Hurley soon after, and a lot of you guys were
Right.
making records. So I think that actual record production kicks off the official genre of music known as house music. But before that, like I said earlier, people were talking about. I mean,
Warehouse.
it could have been, you know.
Right. So hold on. So
Yeah.
so Mr. Wayne Williams
Yes,
is saying that
yes.
house music came from people playing in a house, disco in a house, and that's what it was calling house music.
I've heard him say that many
Okay.
times, and all I can say is that may have been his experience.
Right.
It was
But it's
not my experience.
Okay. That's what I need to know.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't have a recollection of people talking about house coming out of house parties,
Right.
unless, and maybe this is the confusion, because people would hear things and they would say, "Oh man, that's house," and I always understood that to be they're referencing. That's the kind of stuff
They
Frankie's
played the
playing down at the warehouse.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. That's where that's where I got it from too.
Yeah, exactly.
So since you said that,
Yep.
so you're saying Jesse's record On and On was the first house record, or was it Chippy's Time to Jack, It's House, or Jamie Principle Your Love?
Well, the Jamie conversation is an interesting one because we heard Jamie's music before we heard any of that
Correct.
stuff.
Right.
I mean, Frankie was playing Jamie's stuff from Reel to Reel, definitely earlier at the power plant. I get confused. It's been so many years, but I think even at the warehouse we were hearing some Jamie stuff late at the warehouse,
Right.
and it just wasn't pressed on a record, and
Right.
it wasn't
Right.
available in a
That's
record
true.
store.
That is true.
But I leave that to other people who are better.
So you still
suited
saying
to,
now Jesse's the first house record then?
Well, I think it's the first one that was pressed and sold as a record. I know Chip and others say, well, why was that a house record? Because, you know, that Jesse was sort of redoing another record that already existed.
Right.
But I think one of the things, the earmarks of house music was you guys, DJs, producers, making their own tracks in their homes with these drum machines.
Right.
So Jesse's falls into that.
Oh, yeah.
Whether he says house on the record or Jack on the record,
Right.
he falls. You know, what he did was consistent with what came after, and even people like Marshall Jefferson will say, you know, if Jesse hadn't made that record, I never would have thought I could make a record.
Yes, right.
So,
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So does your day job ever get in your way of your DJ career? And have you ever felt there was a time where you had to choose before?
It does get in the way, and honestly, it's probably harder than I make it look.
Right.
But I do pass up a lot of opportunities. I mean, I would love to do more in Europe, and I mean, I just can't with my day job disappear for a week all the time.
Yeah, I know how that is.
So,
brother, trust me.
so there's that, and then certain things. You know, I try to stay away from most things during the week, and you know, so yeah, but. I can't complain, man. At this point, I'm rocking and rolling at both ends, so I can't complain.
So you're friends with a lot of full-time DJs.
Yes.
Do you ever feel like your job makes you any less legitimate as a DJ?
I really don't. I don't feel that way. You know, some other people may.
Right.
You know, I see these posts about, you know, this is how I eat, and that's a hobby for you, and but you know. To me, it's are we doing the thing?
Absolutely.
And I'm out there doing the thing.
Right. I think if you can play and
right.
you play well, I think that just speaks volume
right.
of just because somebody, you know, it's not doing it full time.
Yeah. But I will say on the producer, I mean the thing that I haven't done, I've done a couple of remixes that are out there, but everybody's kind of like waiting for me to
put something
out, and I'm getting there, but that's one of the things that I've had to sacrifice just between busy work schedule, family life, and DJing all the time. Yeah. It's like, where do I fit in the production time? So I'm looking forward to folks better get ready, because when I wind this law stuff down a little bit,
watch out!
I'm gonna be totally
producer DJ Alan King.
I'm gonna be totally on the production tip, so that's coming for sure. Right.
We spoke about this a little earlier about your live Twitch, you know, DJing Saturday Night Live. Tell us a little bit like that, and tell me, why did you stick with it after the pandemic and during the
Yeah.
pandemic?
Yeah. It's been a blessing, man. I was one of the first DJs to like get fed up with Facebook and head over to Twitch. I really didn't know if folks were going to follow me over there. I barely knew what Twitch was.
Right.
And so I think the first night I had no plans to play like a long set. I just started playing. So next thing I knew, I played like 5 or 6 hours, and then that just kind of became my thing.
Right.
That Saturday nights were kind of clear on Twitch, and I've really enjoyed doing these long 6 hour sets where you can
That's a long
stretch
time.
out.
Yeah, that's a
and-
long time.
Yeah, man, I'm up in here. You can feel
Yeah.
you can feel
I
the
can
heat
feel it
right
right
now.
I see
So-
why you've been sweating up here. That's right.
Yeah, but to be able to play like new music, old music,
Right.
everything in between, and the response has just been phenomenal.
So you think since you streaming like that, and you think people are giving you gigs based on that also?
I know that to be a fact on a
Good.
couple of situations. So that's been good.
What's good?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what's the hardest part of putting together the festival each year? AKA the Chosen Few Picnic.
Ooh, yeah, the hardest part of it. Um, it's a labor of love. I don't even call any of it hard. But it's the cost is probably the biggest challenge every year. And this year, when we came back during a kind of a tough economic climate and supply chain issues, like everybody was charging us like
Right.
crazy to. So the biggest thing every year is we people think we make a ton of money at this event, and the truth is some years we make some money,
Right.
some years we don't make any money.
They just don't know the
Yeah.
behind the scenes of what it takes to put a festival together like that.
Yeah, I mean, people's heads would spin if they knew how much
Absolutely.
it costs to produce the event. So, if we can make a little money, that's great. But we're mostly concerned with making enough to reinvest into the event for the next year. So
That's good.
Yeah, that's the biggest challenge every year.
What do you think collectively Chosen Few does well, and what could use improvement?
Ooh, that's a good question. We just Chosen Few do well. The picnic, obviously we do well. I mean, I think our unity is special. Whether it's a DJ crew or a music group
Right.
or whatever it is, you don't usually hear about 5 people being together for 40 years,
Right.
and not breaking up, not somebody
Yeah.
going solo,
Yeah.
not we all have our individual things,
Absolutely.
but we all carry the flag, and we all come back together. So I think our brotherhood and our unity is extraordinary.
That's good.
I don't think
Yeah.
you see that.
Absolutely.
Things we could do better. I don't know, man. I don't have any complaints. I don't have any complaints.
No, I mean, you get
there's
everybody
all-
saying what but
yeah.
that
No,
was the
there's-
question I had to ask.
Yeah, no. There's always things you can do better, but I think it's individual things. Like
Right.
I'd like to be doing more producing, but as a collective, I'm good with how we operate and what we do. Yeah.
Now I have to ask, what is your origin story with President Obama? And did he already like house music, or did you turn him on to that?
Yeah, well, people assume he's a house head, and that might be a little bit too strong a word.
Right.
I always say he has an appreciation for house music, but I don't know if I call him a house head.
Right.
It's funny because it's like other friends you have in your life. You look back to where you met, and I can't even put my finger on a specific
Right.
time and place, but probably playing basketball. I know it was in the probably early to mid 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And we played a lot of ball together,
Right.
figured out we had a lot of mutual friends, lived kind of in the same neighborhood, and became friends. And so, I was helping him with his early campaigns in the
Good.
state senate and all of
Okay.
that. And, it just kind of was a normal friendship like all of us have, until one day this crazy guy said, I think I could be president.
Wow, that's good.
And
Okay.
it's like, yeah, okay, man, we with you, but
Right.
we'll see.
You don't know,
So,
but
yeah,
well, I'm
yeah.
glad it turned out to be great, man.
Oh
So,
yeah,
and
it's
that was a good look. I was there the day when you guys premiered the video of President
oh
Obama
yeah,
saying about the Chosen Few picnic, and
yeah,
flabbergasting, man. Just like that.
yeah.
That was it right there. You know, I mean, I don't think you can get higher than that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this the quick story of that. I mean, just to show you what kind of guy he is. So
Okay.
I had been at the White House for it was like a party or something.
Right.
It was really the first time I had a chance. I pulled him aside for a few minutes to kind of talk about the picnic
Right.
and Chosen Few, and one of the things I told him, which we are proud of, that we put 40,000 people in a park on the south side of Chicago, and we've never had a single act of violence.
Right.
We've never had a security incident of any significance. So I was telling him all this stuff, and that was resonating with him. And then I hit him. I actually had somebody else hit him, but we hit him later and said, "Can you record a audio greeting for the
Right.
Chosen Few picnic?" Where we'll just play your voice saying like "Welcome to the blah blah."
Right.
So all I asked him for was the audio,
Right.
and I got a call one day from the White House saying
Wow.
the president has a video for you,
Oh my
and I
goodness.
said, "You mean audio, right?" He's like, "Oh no, it's a video. He cut it this morning."
Oh my goodness. So he had a whole production team to do all that. Right.
He did that all.
So you guys didn't set
he-
that up. He did all that.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I had sent him a script
Okay.
for the audio thing,
Right.
and he did use. So a lot of what he says on that tape
Was you already
I had
down?
written for him.
Okay.
Yeah. But I didn't ask him to do a video, and that was just all on his own.
Wow.
man.
Because
Just-
I'm like, did he produce the video? Like, because I mean, getting a president to do a video, I mean, he had to call in a lot of people for that, So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just like, oh my goodness.
And the other quick story on that is so I got the video maybe a few days before the picnic, and I was trying to surprise everybody, including all my Chosen Few brothers,
Right.
that we had this video. But it was like burning a hole in my phone for like 5 days. I think I finally broke down. I showed it to Terry Hunter.
Right.
And Terry's like head exploded.
Right.
I'm like, no, just keep this
Wow.
being you.
So nobody knew about it.
No, the rest of the guys, nobody knew about it until that
Wow.
night. Yeah,
Man, that's something right there.
it's amazing.
See?
Man.
Okay, so any plans for a Chosen Few record label?
Um,
I know you said you want to get into it, but
Yeah,
what do you think about that?
I think that's a good idea. Obviously Terry's got his labels, Mike's got a label and doing a lot of different stuff. I think that is a good idea.
Yeah.
Maybe when I finally get on this production tip, that
Well, you remember I mentioned it, man, so I got to be a part of it too now.
absolutely, we would be honored, brother.
All right. So name me your all-time favorite Chicago house music record.
Okay, so if we say Chicago house music, then we're really talking about the genre.
Right?
I still gotta go with Marshall Jefferson House Music Anthem.
Okay.
I mean, I think that
Yes, sir.
that stands the test of time.
Right.
Whenever people hear it, Jamie's stuff is right there too. Your Love would probably be my second, but House Music Anthem,
Okay.
yeah.
You can do one more.
Yeah, probably music is the key.
Okay.
Steve.
Okay.
Probably
Now name
my
me
third.
your top 3 house music producers.
Wow.
Not in a specific order, just off the top of your head.
Yeah, not just Chicago necessarily.
Not
or-
just Chicago. No.
Yeah. I got to go with my Chosen Few brothers, but I'm gonna lump them together in Terry Hunter and Mike Dunn.
Okay.
Definitely Louis Vega
Yes.
for sure, and I gotta go with Morales, man. I
Yeah.
like a lot. Morales has been on fire the last
Yeah.
couple years,
Yeah.
and so I'm going with the
Okay.
vets, the
All right.
the
There we
tried
go.
and
Nothing
true.
wrong with that, brother. So, how does soulful house music not die off with us, Alan?
That's a big concern, man. We were talking about this a little bit. I mean, what I worry about is house music becoming what they call period music.
Correct.
Like Motown or,
Yep.
or swing or,
Yep.
we can't let that just be something that was in the past.
Right.
So we got to find ways to introduce it to the younger people. That's part of why we do the picnic,
Right.
and part of what we want to accomplish with the picnic is, there are kids who have grown up
Correct.
at the Chosen Few picnic, so that's an opportunity with a captive audience of young people, mostly old people, but a lot of young people,
Right.
to introduce them to that music. And then you're starting to see some younger DJs that are sprouting up in the soulful house scene.
Yeah. Yeah. J-Star.
J-Star for sure, just the DJ
Right.
in Jersey, and I know there's a lot of folks out there teaching DJing, and
Right. Yeah.
you know,
You got a little DJ Marcellus.
yeah, for sure. So we just got to find a way. The biggest challenge has been when it went away from radio,
Right.
and when the mixes are no longer on mainstream radio, that's created a big challenge. But all we can do is try to keep exposing younger people to
Now,
the music.
now at the Chosen Few picnic, does you guys take a survey of the crowd that's there and get feedback from their point of view of like what they like, what they dislike, or anything like that?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, we certainly provide opportunities for that, and we take that into consideration.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, our whole thing is really about making it the best event it can be, as I said, and so we definitely listen to that stuff.
Okay. Good.
But you gotta weed through the haters.
Yeah, all the time, man. Come on,
to find a legitimate
that's true.
critiques.
There you go. There you go. You know how that is. But Alan, thank you so much, brother, for being on the show, man. I appreciate you for taking this time out. Everybody go check out Alan King, all on social media. Check out his Twitch, his Saturday Night Live 6-hour sets, which is a lot down
sir.
here. And everything house music and more. Just check that out. Get notifications, hit the bell, and subscribe, you guys. And again, thank you, Alan. I appreciate it, brother.
Appreciate it, man.
All right, brother. Peace.
All right, peace.